Hier sind alle da wie der Kasperle. Seid ihr alle da? Hallo, Herr Kohl, wie geht's?
Hallo, hallo.
Schön zu sehen, Herr Bär auch. Hallo Carla, jetzt, weiß ich, wie viele sind da? Ah, Christian auch noch, das ist doch schön.
Yes,
Hallo Christian.
yes. Agustín, Erwin, sí, y Cecilia, como siempre.
Yes.
Cecilia, claro, muy bien.
Wait a second. Salta grande. Contacto.
¿Los tienes todos identificados, Carla, con letrero correcto? Para que no se me esconda, para saber con quién conversamos.
Claro, es muy importante.
Sí, Carla, tú lo puedes hacer como anfitriona, tú puedes cambiar el nombre a cualquiera.
Ok.
Pero están todos bien identificados.
Perfecto. Entonces sabemos con quién estamos conversando.
Claro.
Bueno, ¿no es cierto?
En Alemania es bastante calor. Muy
Sí, hay mucho calor aquí.
Casi 40
35 grados.
Sí, es muy insoportable. Por eso necesitas una caipirinha con hielo.
Christian, are you German or are you from Chile?
I'm from Chile, but I'm German also.
I mean, I can send you a mail in Spanish.
Sure.
Okay.
Claro que sí, pues soy chileno.
Bueno, vamos todavía.
Oye, para que sepa, Cecilia, Cristian es el presidente del KIT Alumniclub
Sí,
en
ya le
Chile.
dijeron.
Sí, me
Colega
acabo
de
de
la Carla.
enterar. Felicitaciones. El colega de
Carla.
de Carla, y con eso formamos el cono sur.
Exacto.
Exacto.
Y yo soy el ayudante. Acá en Chile se dice el goma, el medio pollo.
El medio pollo.
Vicepresidente.
Aquí se hace, ¿no es cierto?, uno que trabaja por el otro, el medio pollo. El que
Medio
trabaja por el
pollo.
que trabaja el cuarto de pollo. El que recibe el sueldo al de arriba. Los que trabajan son los de abajo. Entonces el medio pollo, cuarto pollo, lo que sea. Así que ahí le trabajamos al señor presidente de acá. No te preocupes.
¡Qué bien!
Así son las jerarquías, Cecilia, esto hay que cuidarlo.
Sí, sí. Yo soy la que trabaja y otro es el que cobra el sueldo, querido. Es terrible.
Claro.
Acá estoy haciendo el grupo de Chile.
Bien. Cecilia, ¿cómo anda tu alemán?
Mi alemán, perfecto, cada día mejor. Soll ich jetzt ein bisschen Deutsch sprechen?
Selbstverständlich, bitte.
Ja,
Ja.
es ist so.
Sí,
Ich habe
¿cómo no?
keine Übung. Schreibe ich viele E-Mails und ab und zu habe ich ein Skype oder ähnliches mit Leuten aus KIT. Daher kann ich ein bisschen sprechen. Sonst habe ich fast alle vergessen.
Cecilia,
Das kommt wieder, das kommt wieder.
Es kommt wieder, ja. Nach einer Woche in Deutschland, dann spreche ich wieder richtig.
Und dann fängt man an zu denken, dann fängt man auch wieder zu denken. Ja, auf
Claro.
Cecilia,
Ja.
kannst
Ja, ja.
du es verstehen, wenn ich sage, mir geht's gut und meine Frau hat Arbeit?
Ah,
Mir geht es gut und meine Frau hat Arbeit. So.
das sind gute Sachen, die kommen zusammen. Ja. Muy bien. Bueno,
Oye, hay
Erwin.
una Graciela que no conozco. ¿Hay alguien, Graciela? Veo por lo menos no sé qué más. ¿Quién
Erwin,
es?
sag
Que
mir,
digas aló.
schreib bitte dein E-Mail in
Ahí
der-
veo un nombre, Graciela,
No, ya sé, pero estoy
y no sé quién es.
Erwin,
Ahora, eso es puro curiosidad mía nomás, ¿eh? Pero hay una...
hola.
¿Quién es?
Erwin. Hola.
¿Sí?
Te puse como
Te escucho bien, te escucho.
coanfitrión porque se me corta internet, tengo miedo de caerme. Así ustedes mantienen
Bueno,
la comunicación. ¿Puede ser?
sí, pues sí, no sé, claro. Si se cae el anfitrión, se cae la reunión, correcto.
Erwin, bitte, schreib dein E-Mail in der Chat, damit ich dir ein Mail schicken kann.
ね。
Okay. I think we are here.
Do we start?
I think so. What do you think?
Yes.
Okay. So Thomas, thanks
Yeah.
for being here with us. Thomas is a full professor at KIT at Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. He holds the chair of the division of geothermal energy at the Institute of Applied Geosciences, and he's head of the Helmholtz geothermal program at KIT. After his degree in geophysics at the Technical University of Karlsruhe, he became research associate in Paris in the field of seismology. Okay, in 1992, he got his PhD at ETH Zurich on his investigation of coupled processes in deep geothermal system. Probably I can send you later your complete CV or a short CV because you have a long one. And for today, our talk will be the potential of geothermal, renewable energy source for South America. Oops, I have a problem here with internet. Okay, okay, he will talk us about the potential of geothermal energy because it's often neglected in the public communication. However, it is based on the extraction of heat from a huge resource below our feet, and its production benefits from the experience of other successful technologies. Especially low temperature applications are widespread in many European towns and do not need a huge volcanic research nearby. The presentation will give examples of their application. In addition, the classical conventional geothermal production for power production is of high importance. Argentina, like other South American countries, have unique opportunities in this context. We can discuss the challenges and the needs for broader application of this. Baseload capable energy source, and you have already Thomas contact here with Cecilia to work with. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I have problems with the internet. Maybe you cannot hear me good, or yes?
I hear you. Yeah. No problem.
So thank you, Thomas.
Okay. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and on the potential of geothermal energy and what we consider to be an important renewable energy source for South America. You see on the left and on the right of these two pictures, the one picture is from Chile, the other from France. So we are working here at KIT always on a very international level. And the examples that I give you are also international examples. Also, we have a very important utilization in Germany around Munich, what I will introduce you. But first of all, we need to say, why are we going into geothermal? So we should make sun and we should make wind, whatever we have. This is always the kind of what the people tell us. And then we have to say, no, listen, earth science and geotechnologies are very important. And if you go onto the challenges of the United Nations for the future of our human civilization, and they have been printing out 7 sustainable development goals. And out of these 7 sustainable development goals, approximately 1/3 is due to underground research. So we need to have a clean water, we need to have mineral resources also for solar, we need to have good tunnels in future, we need to have enough raw materials, and of course enough energy. So we can really distinguish that earth science and geotechnology is a key for the development of our civilization. And I'd say to the people, look around you and tell me what is not coming from the ground. And people typically have a lot of problems to say, okay, maybe it's the wood. Yes, but we still have fertilizers in woods that are coming from the underground. So really, we have a lot of our civilization, and most of the civilization depends on the underground. And then we speak about from our German perspective. So we see how much energy, and everybody says, oh, we Germans, we are so good, we have a lot of renewable energies. And then you really look at the statistics from its original ground. And when you see this and you see a development, and here you have a distribution, the gray on here, this is hard coal or Steinkohle. This one is lignite, Braunkohle. This one is petroleum. These one are gases here. And then we're coming to top the nuclear energy. We still have a little bit nuclear energy, but it is reducing more and more, and it will phase out in 2023. And then we have this yellow part, which is the renewable, what we consider the renewable, and this is mostly solar and wind. And then we still have some others. So this is a kind of distribution. What do we see? We see that more or less the primary energy consumption in Germany is very stable. So there's not a big shift. Just in the very beginning, it was East Germany, so the DDR was, the old industry was put down, but starting 1992, more or less, nothing has really changed. Except that the portion of nuclear was replaced by, or parts of nuclear was replaced by renewables. Otherwise, this is a very stable development, and we still need the same amount of lignite that what we had done in 20 years ago, or of hard coal as well. And so today we are depending on 86%, on nearly 78% on fossil fuel. We are, and out of this, we have 86% is steerable energy. I mean, we can use it when we need it, and otherwise we only have 14% of non-steerable energy, fluctuating energies, and this is a kind of challenge for our economic system in Germany, because the Mercedes is built when there's a need and not when the wind is blowing. And what we have else is we see a lot of dependence on heat. So it's not only electricity, but 50% of this energy is heat that we need. This is also very important to understand. Now, geothermal. I don't want to go too much into deep detail, but I mean, what needs to be clear is we are living on an extremely hot planet. And it's only the very thin crust. The crust here on the left, what I see is what you not even can scale down. It's a 30 kilometers thick. This is the Earth's crust. And, we have drilled only in parts of this Earth's crust. The rest of the Earth is more or less unknown to the direct observation. It's only indirect observation. It allows us to forecast what will be in the depths. So we are landing on the moon, but we have not entered the Earth at all. However, in the core of the Earth, we have the same temperature than on the surface of the sun. So it's a very hot planet. It's an extremely hot planet, and we only can live on a very small skin of this hot planet. And so we have 6,000 degrees in the core, and this is exactly the temperature that we have also on the sun, on the surface of the sun. But the Earth preserves the heat. It does not expand. So the Earth is a very nice and perfect isolator. So the heat stays in the Earth, and it does not flow out, or just a little bit is only flowing out. So what flows out of the Earth, of this hot planet, is less than 0.1% of what from the energy flux from the sun is reaching us. So it is a very nice isolator. And you can imagine that once the Earth is spreading out in parts, we might have higher temperatures and we have lower temperatures at depth. So this is depth and this is temperature. And these are different temperature profiles from the Earth. that we caught, and you see it can be very hot. So this would be a situation in Ladarello. We would reach 200 degrees C in approximately 200 meter depth. Or here, this is a temperature profile of the Rheingraben. So we are reaching here 200 degrees C in 5 kilometer depth, or in other locations like this one, we never will come to, or we don't know when we will directly come to 200 degrees C. So reaching 200 degrees C is very often a challenge. But if you will be able to cool down rock from 200 degrees C on 100 degrees C, so from here to here, for example, this is the thermal power of 50 megawatt over 20 years, or it is 5 billion liters of domestic fuels, or it would be, if tank trucks are lined up, would be 5,000 kilometers of tank trucks. So longer than Chile is, I think. Huh? So if you have tank trucks along Chile lined up, it would correspond to the same amount of energy that cooling down of 1 cubic kilometer of rock would provide if we cool it down by 100 degrees C. Now we have to use this heat, and we have different technology to use it. We have a Borehole heat exchangers, which are heating a house. I will show you an example later. We have Borehole heat exchanger fields that are also a little bit shorter in way, but the heating and cooling can apply for heating and cooling advices. Then we have hydrothermal. Hydrothermal is linked. These are open wells. So these are the examples before are closed wells. This is an open well, and the fluid is injected in the underground and reproduced in the other well. And we need to have good connectivities in the underground. We speak of permeability. And then we have the so-called petrothermal system in Europe, in which we also have inject and produce out of a deep fractured crystalline rock. These two examples are for electricity. The Borehole heat exchanger only would be for heating. Electricity today by geothermal is 15 gigawatt. So we have a total of 15 gigawatt installed on geothermal worldwide. And the vision of the International Energy Agency is to install more than 500 gigawatt electric reserves. So what is the advantage of geothermal? So it only occupies a little space at surface, so especially at big major towns, it's a very strong benefit. There is a production of thermal energy and of power, electricity. We also could use these zones here to store energy or to store masses, and this is all a new application that is coming up. So we want to store excess heat and reproduce it in winter. But in research, we will concentrate mostly here on these two systems, which are the open systems where the flow is in the underground from between the two wells. And we need to have more possibilities to study what happens in here or what happens here. This is where we are working on and where we get granted quite important projects. The Karlsruhe, as you all know, is situated in the Rheingraben. And the Rheingraben is the biggest thermal anomaly of Germany and one of the biggest, maybe the biggest in all of Central Europe. We have very high temperature, and the highest temperature reached in Germany is below the campus north of KIT. So this is a unique coincidence. We have 170 degrees, 170 degrees in 3 kilometer depth. And this is what you can see here. So we have here, this is the temperature in 2.5 kilometer depth. And you see where the Rheingraben here and where Karlsruhe is situated. This is where the big temperature anomalies are in Germany. The others are green and yellow, much cooler. This is the temperature scale that you can see here. We have also a number of geothermal productions around Karlsruhe. So Karlsruhe would be then here. So we have here Bruchsal, Brühl is coming up, and then we have Landau, Insheim, Sulz, a very old important project, Rittershofen in France, Wendenheim, Ilkirch, and then Rien in Switzerland. So we have a number of geothermal projects more or less around KIT, and we have a strong collaboration, especially with Strasbourg and with the Darmstadt on this. So, and one of the key challenges here is seismicity. People very often don't like geothermal because they are afraid of seismicity. And so we want to study these effects in the underground, which are induced by the high flow rates. And we want to have strategies for this risk management in future. Now, we are leaving right now Karlsruhe and the big temperature anomaly. We're moving over to Munich area, to the Bavarian Molasses system. And the Molasses system is a peculiar system. So we have an aquifer. This is a kind of aquifer in the underground that is very permeable. You have the same in the area of Entre Rios in Argentina. And this temperature depends on the location, on the depth of this aquifer. In this case, the closer you come to the Alps, the deeper the aquifer will be, and so the hotter it will be as well. And so projects which are situated here in the deeper part are suited for electricity, for power production. Projects situated here are suited for thermal production. What we have right now in Munich is an incredible situation. So this is the town of Munich here, what you see. This is the blue one here. Okay, and all around Munich you have geothermal doublets. In the moment we have 24 projects, meaning these are approximately 64 boreholes going in depth down to 4 kilometers. So this is really a huge development that takes place here. And what is the focus? The focus is that these geothermal projects right now are entering Munich, and this is why we are as researchers in. So we try to understand the processes in the subsurface of Munich, because we don't want to have any seismicity in Munich on the one hand, but on the other hand, they will heat Munich by 2035, 100% through renewables, and most of the renewable is coming from geothermal. So this is the district heating, the Fernwärme in Munich will be done through geothermal, and this is a very important project. Another application, which is close to some parts also in Argentina and definitely to Chile, is the so-called conventional high enthalpy systems. Conventional high enthalpy systems are very high temperatures close to a magma body in the underground. And so a perfect example is here the geysers in the United States. So we have here a valley. This is a valley that you see in the United States, and this valley, there we produce something like 1 gigawatt electricity. This is what is done here. And so you see a lot, if you're there, you see a lot of deer, and so there's the fauna and flora is perfectly preserved, except that you have these tubes here in the whole valley. The question is, how do they produce this energy? The energy is produced by infiltration of natural fluids. The fluids go to subsurface, they stay in the so-called aquifer again. So this aquifer is a zone, subsurface zone, where the fluids can migrate very easily because of a high permeability. And so the fluids are migrating down in this aquifer, and they're going to be heated up by one of these magma bodies in the underground. And once they're heating up in the underground, they they're getting hot and hotter, and the hotter they get, the better it. They will start coming up to surface through small faults in the Earth crust, and then you will see fumaroles. This is vapor coming up from the underground, and this is an indicator. These fumaroles, they typically have temperatures of 100 degrees, which is not the temperature that you have here in the underground. These 100 degrees is because you are here, can go in the thermodynamic. They are in the boiling curve. So the fluid comes up at very high temperatures at 200, 300 degrees here in the aquifer. And then it comes up, it's hitting the boiling curve. And then it's following the boiling curve until we have at atmospheric pressures a temperature of 100 degrees C. So all the fumaroles that you see in nature, once you are in these areas, they have all temperatures around 100 degrees because of the boiling curve, not because of the temperature at deeper parts. So this is the situation, and it's not very often that you meet these situations. Okay, so you need to have a magma body, you need to have an aquifer, you need to have here a so-called impermeable rock. We call it cap rock. So that keeps the pressure in the aquifer. So these systems exist and are generally exploited in the United States, in Mexico and Costa Rica, but they are not exploited in Chile and not in Argentina. You have these systems, but they're not exploited. We may discuss it later. One application that I'm trying to squeeze down, I could speak for hours and hours, but I'm coming right now to the low end of heat, something that you could install in every town. It is not, you don't need to have a special underground situation. You can do it in every town and every environment. It's done. These are the so-called borehole heat exchanger systems, BHE, or German Erdwärmesonden. EWS, EWS. So what we need for it, we need a borehole. There's a borehole, a conduit in the borehole, fluid goes down and the fluid comes up. Then we need here a heat pump. A heat pump, for those who are not, no idea what a heat pump is a fridge. You have a heat pump in every kitchen. In a way, just it is inverted. You have to invert the adapters, but it is exactly the same technology like a fridge. And then you need to have your heating system in the house. And in order to have an economic system that uses a lot of underground energy, you should have a low temperature heating system. So in my case, I have a heating system of roughly 35 degrees. So this is the temperature of my heating system. I'll give you an example, and this is how it looks like. So this was the drilling in my home. It was winter, so it was very ugly weather. So just the renovation of the home, the house was just finished, and the garden still was looking terrible. And we have been installing this borehole heat exchanger here. So this was a truck. On the left side, you see the truck here. The end of the truck. This is a drilling machine of the truck. This hose here provides the air, so it is compressing the air. And so it is starting drilling here a hole in this part in the case of my home, for 182 meters. So one hole, 182 meters. And then once it was drilled, you go on the right side here, then they're injecting these pipes. You can see here, they're injecting these pipes here into the hole. And they fill up the hole with water. And then the system, and as with cement, by the way, cement and water. And then the system is operating. It provides temperature to the house. At a temperature level of roughly 10 degrees. And then we have a heat pump that is working economically when we have a low temperature heating system, so a floor heating system. And this is a system as it stands. So we have here, we have 3 circles. One circle here, the water that is pumped down in the borehole and coming up. Then we have the circle in our heat pump or our fridge. And then we have the circle of the heating system. Okay? And so if the ground temperature and the temperature of the heating system are not too different, the heat pump is very economic. It's perfect economic. So I pay with the given high prices for electricity in Germany. So they are certainly double the prices in South America. I'm paying 250 euros only for the annual operation for the heat pump, and then the system. I have no other costs associated to my system. So 250 euros is the whole cost for the whole heating system. And so we can use it. I use it in a very good manner, but it could be used as well in areas where it's going to be very hot, like for example in Buenos Aires or in Santiago. And so we have a different heat, so-called load profile on heating. In general, here in Karlsruhe, we have from January to April, we have a heating need. And then here, because we have 35 degrees as well, we have a cooling need. And so office buildings with all the PCs, they need a lot of energy and cooling energy. So this is a cooling need. So we can have a load profile on heating and a load profile on cooling. And then by end of the year, it comes back to winter. And the underground looks like this. In the underground, it's cooled down. It's getting cool. And then with increasing, when we have the cooling need, we are warm. We're taking the heat from the building and bring the heat down to the underground. So we are heating up the underground here. And then by end of the year, we are then back and we use the heated temperature of the storage, the stored energy in the underground. We use the stored energy for heating up the buildings again. And once we have these kind of systems with borehole heat exchangers, they are even more economic than the systems that we use. So you see there are plenty of applications that are all possible in South America. And one experience that I always like to demonstrate is also in Iceland, the country with the well-known geothermal utilization. People didn't want to have geothermal at the beginning. And they were forced to do so because all the coal that they were burning out, they gave a very bad atmosphere, and people couldn't even breathe in Reykjavik. So this was the situation in 1930 in Reykjavik, so very bad air. And today, all of Reykjavik is heated by geothermal, so it's a perfect fresh air. So there's no fossil fuel burned except for cars in Reykjavik anymore. And if you look today, Santiago, for example, in one of these special seasons, it looks pretty much the same as, even worse, I guess, like Reykjavik. And so it could be, by pushing for geothermal, we could do something on the air, so getting clean air. And I'm stopping my talk here. Gracias por su atención. And this is a picture of an excursion that we had last year in Iceland, and with some sheep around one of these fumaroles, or large fumaroles that are coming out of the ground. And the sheep are looking around and staring and looking. Maybe they're looking, can we use the energy? Okay, so I stop here. And if you like, I have one more backup slide for Argentina, but we could try to discuss it. Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Always really, really, really very interesting. I think there are a lot of questions around the people here to ask you. Hello?
Yes, I would have a question, Carla.
Sí.
Sí. Thomas, would you invest money for water resources at 70 or 80 degrees just to use this temperature for heating at private houses?
This is a perfect temperature, 17, 18 degrees, but you would need, of course, a heat pump. With 17, 80 degrees, you could get, I mean, I mentioned that you need these low temperature heating systems for this Borehole heat exchanger. So the temperature between the temperature coming out of the ground and in the heating system should not be too different. Then the heat pump is working economic. For 17, 18 degrees, if you use a heat pump, you could use a temperature heating up to 40, 50 degrees, okay? It even would be economic. So what we have, I had to install a floor heating system. This is when, once you start up, make a new building. I was renewing my building. I have a 500-year-old house. But, I made a completely new building internally for the heating system. And so I was installing, of course, a floor heating system. But if you have an isolated house, but with an old furnace or with an old radiator heating system, 17, 80 degrees would be perfect. Yes, you could do it.
Very good. Yeah, very good. And also for the industry, for some preheating, because we are trying to sell the idea to local industry to use very low enthalpy heat just as preheating, previous heating.
Yes, so this depends always on the situation. Of course, you can have a preheating starting up heating up 17 degrees water.
Claro.
You need less energy to heat it up onto the process heat that you need in industry, of course. This is, but I mean, you need to see once you're taking out the fluid, you have also to re-inject it, and there will be always a temperature difference, and it might be so. If you use it for house heating, you will inject cooler water, but it might be that for heating of industrial use, it might be wastewater that is hotter. And as soon as the water gets hotter, you have a lot of bacteria around the well, and this one might pollute the whole aquifer. So you need to be careful. Okay? You need to control. So if it's not a drink, if the aquifer is for as a drinking use, then you need to be careful. The deeper aquifers are typically very saline, so it is not a resource for us. But if it's close to surface, you need, I don't say it is impossible, but you just need to be careful, and you need to know what you're doing.
Yes, you are right. Thank you very much. Yes, this is a problem.
Erwin?
Professor Kohl, thank you very much for this incredible good presentation. I always love your presentation because they're on the point. I have to remind my cultural time when one of my professors, where I made my PhD, Professor Schlünder from the Tema, he told us there is no something like called exchanger. There's heat changers because the heat only goes from higher temperature to lower temperature. So he banked on us to say not Wärme austauschen, but Wärme tauschen. As simple as that. And I try to use that language also here because it's so common that we say heat exchangers. There is nothing to exchange back and forth. It's just changing. But that was because I remember, because he banged on me just to have the right word. But I know it's always impossible when you speak. It happens to me. You say heat exchanger, not changer. But that was just one point I remember from Professor Schlünder, who was marvelous in that. About the cost effectiveness, because you're using heat pumps, okay? So what you're doing is heating up, is increasing the level of temperature just to have a normal heat exchanger in that way. Now the question is, how cost effective is doing this with geothermal compared with air? Because that is the challenge. I can use my air conditioning and I'm stealing the heat from the air, or I'm putting my heat back to the air. Commonly it is use the heat in the air. You cannot go very low because otherwise the ice will block your heat changer outside. That's the problem when you go to minus temperatures. There's no way that you can invert an air conditioning to use that. How do the costs compared with your solution of low enthalpy, what you did at home?
So these ground-coupled heat pump systems, or in German it's Sohle Wasser Wärmepumpen, they are on an efficiency much better in efficiency than an air system. So the one is the heat changer. I mean, you have these heat exchangers once you want to connect these three circles.
Air to system, right?
So air has a very bad heat transfer rate. So if you do it on water, it is of course much better. Okay, so the efficiency of these water-driven heat pump systems are better than the air systems. And in addition, with these ground-coupled systems or Borehole heat exchanger systems, they provide more or less a stable temperature. Whereas when you have an air system, it provides the temperature of the cold days, and this is a problem very often. Yeah. So there we say that we need to. So there are two reasons why an air system has a lower efficiency than a system from.
And what about the cost of the system? I mean, I know. So you have.
The cost is for a heat pump. A heat pump is a heat pump. I mean, it is a question of demand. An air-driven heat pump used to be cheap, more expensive than the Borehole heat exchanger heat pumps, but it has inverted because of the problems that they had recently in Germany in drilling, because they wanted to have the cheapest driller, and the low-minded people just could provide offers, and they were really destroying the underground and also houses. But this is nothing else than a question of quality assessment. But so right now we have more air heat pump systems than we have ground-coupled heat pump systems, meaning that the air systems are getting cheaper from heat pump. But I mean, if you look on the energy bill, you pay the difference then on your energy bill, of course. You know, you have a daily higher energy bill with air-driven systems than with ground-coupled systems. So there are different investigations on money, on the economics, and most of them, or nearly everything says that these air-driven systems, the ground-coupled system, Borehole heat exchangers, are the cheapest way to heat up your house. So there are numerous of these examples. If you can do it on cooling as well, then you're gaining twice.
Thank you. I just had one more question. I had a colleague in Karlsruhe. He built a house, and he didn't use the but he used underneath his garden.
Yeah, well, about
1 meter.
This is because he didn't get the permit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So he put I thought it was a copper. So he all the below his grass, and then when and he uses the pump was very good. But then came the winter, everything worked perfectly, and then he looked at his neighbors, all had green grass, and he had still snow
Exactly.
on top of his grass.
Yeah.
So he could
This
see.
This is a well-known fact. So it is not for me, because for me it is a vertical. But if you are cooling, if you have these loops in your garden, it will retard. It is a retarding effect on the vegetation. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Very
Thomas,
good. Thank you.
May I have another question? Carla?
Yeah.
Thomas, when you call about heat pumps, are you talking about systems with an additional working substance who is changing the phase and so on? That's
Can you still see my slides here?
yes.
Yeah, okay. So what we see here is, I mean, more or less these three circles. The circle connecting to the underground is pure water, maybe with a little bit alcohol in to prevent freezing. But this is typically pure water, and also the heating system in your home is also pure water, of course. But the circle here in your heat pump, this has, of course, a different temperature. This is the same fluid that is also in your fridge. You know, this is where you get boiling at 0 degrees at 1 bar. This is more or less the situation what you need to have. So you cannot get it with water, so you need different properties. So this fluid in your heat pump and also in your fridge is different from water.
Yes, and yeah, but I think this is only possible with when the difference of temperature between this number 1 and number 3 is not too high. If you have a big difference of temperature there, I think you need more energy for the heat pump than the energy you win.
Okay. So I did not explain the how a heat pump is working. So the heat pump is working in a way on the latent heat effect. Okay, you have a condenser and an evaporator.
Yes.
And on the one hand, you have to put in energy at a low pressure and low temperature, and then you bring it up to a higher pressure.
You condensate.
You're compressing your gas, and then you release the energy on a different temperature.
Yeah.
So you can calculate it through the Carnot efficiencies. And in my example, I have 25-degree temperature difference or 30-degree temperature difference between here and here. And this looks very good. So we speak of a so-called seasonal performance factor, eine Jahresarbeitszahl. And this one is around 5.5. And this is good. So we have 1 unit of electricity and 5.5 units of geothermal heat. Okay, so this is a very good relation. Okay. Therefore, I don't pay a lot.
And the idea is to use electricity coming from renewable sources.
Of course, yeah. So if you have a photovoltaic system on your roof, and I mean, you can run your heating. You don't need to run your heating system all day through, but you can run it when the sun is there. So, or you still have a battery connected, then it might be perfect.
It's fascinating. Thank you. Very good. Yeah.
Okay.
If there is nobody right now, I just would have a second question. What we have seen in Chile, the problem is if you use water or aquifers, as you mentioned, is that the water is very much regulated. And there is a completely different part because we have water shortage and so on. So we are not allowed to use the water. So I guess we have always to use the system that you use, which is indirect heat changer.
No, you could use it. I think you will also be able to use it because there is all you're doing is you're cooling down the water by 3 degrees. Okay, this is the only impact.
But it is not allowed here to use the water without water permits. I could use the water as we do, for instance, for a small hydro plant, where I give the water completely back to the river. But that's not allowed. I have to have a permit to use a non-consumptive use. I can consume it, or it's non-consumptive. But even so, the problem is that we have to use the water permits to use the water. If I have an indirect exchange as you did, you have your own water and you're just pumping the heat out of the system without utilizing the groundwater. I know that here in Chile, it changed the level for the high enthalpy plants. They had to change the law. They can use that water in the mountain. But otherwise, for normal household use, it's not possible. And I can remember I had a neighbor in Germany. He used just the groundwater. The water level was 1 meter below the surface, and he could use just the groundwater. Nobody hindered him of using it.
I have to say, you know, I grew up in most of my career I had in Switzerland, and in Switzerland it was also restricted. So in Switzerland they have much more Borehole heat exchanger system, but only a restricted number of these aquifer utilization. And the reason is because the authorities want to protect the aquifers. If everybody's going to drill in the aquifers, they might get polluted as well. And so here in Germany, where typically everything is forbidden, but the utilization of aquifers is not forbidden. And this is what I don't understand. I mean, they should lift many other things here, but they should carry a little bit more on the aquifers.
Yep. Okay. Another question? The last one, maybe.
Okay, so anyhow, if you have any questions, you can send me an email.
Okay.
And I might not reply immediately, but because I get very much emails. Anyhow, I hope to meet you again, also in Argentina and in Chile, of course, very much, because I love South America personally very much. And I hope to be back in South America in a couple of months. Hopefully
next year, Carla.
Yeah.
Next year, we have to meet each other in Chile.
Yeah.
Yes. We met with Professor Cole, that was in October last year, where we started to have some problems, social problems in this country. It wasn't that easy at that time. And that's why we have stopped on doing whatever. Because we have a COVID right now, but then we will have again our social problems. So it's not easy times. But
no, it's not easy.
That's our world right now.
So we are finishing our cycle of Coronactivity between our KIT alumni clubs in South America. We are going to send you in the next days a survey to complete. Please do it, because we needed to go further with the other activities for the next month. So thank you to be with us.
Just one question. Do you want to have my slides?
Yes. I like.
Okay. But I would like, because, you know, I don't want to spread it just open. I will make a password.
Okay.
On top of it. So it is password protected, and then I will send you, Carla, I will send you the PDF and also a password. It might be something like Alumni or KIT or something like this. And then you can have it. Yeah?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks. And
okay.
I hope to see you in September again. Okay?
Yes.
Gracias, Carla.
Ciao.
See you.
Ciao. Carla. Pero, Carla.